Good evening and welcome to NTA Tuesday Live. I am Claire Adilabo Abdul-Razak, standing in for your regular host, Cyril Stober. A very big shoes to fill in. I hope to do my best. Now, in the last few weeks, the political atmosphere has been charged with series of activities preparatory to party primaries billed to hold on or before the 3rd of June, 2022. Now, with the timetable already out since the 26th of February 2022, politicians are up in their ante, jostling for who clinches party tickets for the grand finale, and by that I mean the 2023 general elections. Now, a few weeks to Inec deadline, how prepared are political parties? What are some of the top issues to be mindful of? And at what point would tensions dissolve to trigger real politics? And of course, what are the implications of violating or flouting INEC timetables? So these and more issues will be raised for answers tonight. But before we go into our discussion proper, let's get to see this background report by our correspondent, Timothy Yusuf.
Primary elections, often known as primaries, are a process by which voters can indicate their preference for their party's candidate or a candidate in general in an upcoming general election, local election, or by-election. With the 2023 general elections fast approaching, political parties are settling into the primary election season in line with INEC timetable and guidelines.
The Commission will now focus its attention on election technology and election administration. Clearly, these are challenging times, but we are determined that election must hold in 2023. No way around it.
At the moment, many aspirants have indicated their plan to run for different positions on their various political parties' platforms, while others are still consulting. Although the two major parties, the All Progressives Congress, APC, and the People's Democratic Party, PDP, are yet to zone the presidency, some of their members have formally declared their interest in the position. In line with Section 84 of the Electoral Act, political parties have between April 4 and June 3 to present their flag bearers for presidential, governorship, state and national legislative seats. While some of the aspirants are already pushing for consensus candidates ahead of their primary elections, other political parties have set machineries in motion towards a hitch-free primary election.
We also want to assure all members of the APC, not only the aspirant, but all members who are going to elect the aspirant, that we want a free and fair.
At the end of the day, whoever loses, we feel that he lost fairly and transparently.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has issued a fresh warning to political parties against undermining its guidelines on the 2023 general elections. The Commission said it would not tolerate any attempt by political parties to ignore constitutionally allowed processes in the nomination of its candidates as they prepare for the primary elections. Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
All right, that was Timothy Yusuf giving us a background to our topic for tonight, build up to party primaries. And I'm sure you know how we do it. I'm not alone here in the studios. We have our guests who have joined us here to, of course, in this conversation. Let me quickly do the introductions. And I'll begin with Honorable Sha'aba Ibrahim. He's right here in the studio with me, member House of Representatives, representing the PDP political party. He's also former local government chairman and former NBA chairman in Kogi State. Honorable Ibrahim, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Nigerians.
Also here in the studio with me is Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu. He's a familiar face here on NTA network. He's former minority leader, businessman, and politician. It's always a pleasure to have you with us, Honorable.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers.
And also Felix Morka, lawyer and National Publicity Secretary of the APC, also joins us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
and National Chairman, Labour Party, is also with us. And also with us is Ibrahim Bawa, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, SAN. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to Tuesday Live tonight. Intimate us of the procedures. I'm sure if you are a regular viewer, you must be familiar with how we roll. Much later in the course of our program, we'll be opening the phone lines, and we do advise that if you do get through, if your calls to get through, tune down the volume of your television set. That way you'll be able to hear your answers, and the guests right in the studio will be able to provide solutions to the questions that you've raised. We'll also appreciate if you keep your questions short and simple and direct to the point, and of course tone down the formalities. And that done, I'd like to quickly begin our conversations with this guest right here in the studio. And I think a very proper place to start is with latest developments. And as we all know, the National Assembly, especially the House of Reps, came back from for an emergency meeting, and they had to look at the part of this Electoral Act, amendment bill, which seeks to correct an omission in Section 84(8) of the Electoral Act. Let me begin with Honorable Shaba Ibrahim. What do you think about that?
Thank you very much, moderator. Let me say I've been assured that what the National Assembly seeks to do is, in effect, going in to cover a lacuna that has emanated, albeit inadvertently, in the course of preparing the amendment. That has to do with the status of political office holders, like elected office holders who are supposed to be ordinarily delegates at the upcoming convention of parties. And without providing the enabling legislation for them, it has the potential of invalidating, the consequence of the output, the outcome of conventions, and by implication, the primaries of political parties. So I think that intervention is timely, and it's quite desirable if it's to save the entire process from unavoidable consequences. From avoidable disastrous consequences that may emanate from a lack of filling of that void. Having said that, it's still something, it's in process. I expect that the Senate has done its own bit. The House should be able to go and pass it in concurrence tomorrow.
The Senate gave accelerated hearing today.
Accelerated. I believe the House will accelerate it as well, because time is not on anybody's side as it is. And don't forget that even if you do that, that is not the end of the matter. It has to get presidential assent. If the last experience is anything to go by, it comes with a lot of pampering and what have you, so that Mr. President can quickly append his signature to it, so that we have, in effect, an electoral act that will serve the purpose for which it is intended. So I think it's a welcome development.
Okay. Honorable Farouk Adamu Ali, what's your perspective to that, considering, again, he just raised an issue, the pampering and the assent, that the president will have to, give?
Well, first of all, National Assembly can legislate over the air you and I breathe. So they have the right to do what they think is right. But my fear is that Mr. President, also proposed some amendments, which they refused. They turned down in their own right, and they have the right to do that. Now, I hope the National Assembly have had a meeting with the executive arm of government to agree, come and do this so that we can pass it quickly. Otherwise, Mr. President will need his legal team to look at it before he assents to it. And there is no time, absolutely. The primaries are billed to start like APC on the 18th. PDP probably even earlier. So, I just hope they've done that. If they have not, the president has 30 days to assent or otherwise. Unless if they will come and try their muscle, if Mr. President refuses, probably they will try to override his veto powers. So all those things are political, and which I hope they have contacted the executive arm of government so that there will be synergy. Because this is not about any party, it's about the whole country, the whole system. But then whether in the wisdom of the executive arm, whether what the National Assembly is proposing is doable or they're in agreement with it. So that will all, it's left for us to see. And as I said, I hope my colleagues in National Assembly have done that.
Okay, let me take the question or the conversation now to Felix Morka, who is a lawyer and National Publicity Secretary of the APC. Mr. Morka, what do you think? Might there be implications if this takes longer than the deadline for the primaries?
Hope is that the speed with which the Senate passed that amendment bill will be replicated at the House of Representatives and then quickly moved on to the President for accent. That is, our hope, and because it's very important. The omission of the provision, which is now sought to be included, was inadvertent. I don't think it was as a result of anyone's fault as such, but it is absolutely important that this amendment is made so that those who are eligible to vote at primaries are able to vote and not disenfranchised, which is invariably the case without this amendment. So this is really important for democracy.
All right, Felix Morka, thank you for your perspective. I'll take the conversation again to the national chairman of the Labour Party who joins us in this conversation tonight, Julius Abure. Julius, what are your perspectives to this development?
Add my voice to the voice of other speakers who have advocated that it is in the national interest, it is in the interest of democracy to have that omission included in the act. So I urge the House of Representatives to also emulate what has been done in the Senate, and I use this medium to urge Mr. President to also assent to the amendment when eventually it is passed. I think it is in the interest of the democracy, it's in the interest of Nigeria for that aspect of the bill to be included. So I concur and I agree with previous speakers that the omission should be corrected and included in the amendments.
Okay, thank you, Julius Abure. And then I would like the Leonard Segbawa to collate the legal implications of what probably might happen or might not happen should this beat the deadline or not meet the deadline.
The implications of the amendment not being carried through is not as negative as we may think, provided that we have other persons who lawfully and by implication rightly vote at the primaries. But what is important is to give every person the opportunity to vote so that nobody is disenfranchised. So there is a need for all hands to be on deck to ensure that our laws make provisions for all that are entitled to vote to be able to vote at the primaries. That basically is what I will contribute on.
Right, thank you. And another issue that I would also like all of us to talk about is another developing issue, which borders on the requests or appeals, so to speak, by some political parties, for extension, of the date of the primary. And I don't know what your perspectives are, but again, let me start with the Leonard Segbawa.
The timelines, the timelines for activities in the Electoral Act are now strictly regulated. Where you jump one of the timelines, the likely implication is that INEC will not be able to meet up with its own activities. So the decision by INEC not to allow the extension is guided by the fact that the timelines are already rigidly provided in the Electoral Act. If you move one timeline, the implication is that some other timelines will be affected. So political parties, having been given the timeline as required immediately the Electoral Act was passed, should be able to make arrangements to meet up with their own responsibilities. Otherwise, we will risk the opportunity of having the elections within the time provided by the Electoral Act. I think political parties need to sit up and be able to do their primaries within the times provided by INEC. Thank you.
All right, thank you also for your perspectives, and I like the publicity secretary, national publicity secretary of the APC, to also speak on this because we understand that the Inter-Party Advisory Council really asking for extension of 2 months, you know, from what is at the moment. But we hear also that INEC is sticking to its guns of the deadline.
It's true that the parties are seeking some extension of time to enable them comply with, the requirements for primaries. Yes, my colleague, the Leonard Silk, is right that the timeframes are set in very rigid form, and that moving one may affect the other. But I think that there may be some wiggle room, which is the reason the parties are asking INEC to look very closely and see whether or not they can accommodate this shift. As you can tell, the parties themselves are completely burdened with this very stiff deadlines, which are important, quite frankly. I mean, because some of them are statutory. But I think that INEC does have some wiggle room that may accommodate some flexibility so that we can get this right. Because ultimately, it's about our elections. Yes, the speed and the need for that sort of schedule is important. But at the end of the day, I think it matters more that we get this right, and that our primaries are done well. Because if they're done well, then our general elections are also likely to follow.
Interesting. But I would also like you to explain further, what are some of the exigencies, from your party that makes this request for extension necessary?
For exigencies, as for example, we have recorded quite an impressive expression of interests by our members who seek to run for various offices, from the State Assembly to the Office of President. These numbers we require to be cleared, to go through all of the stages of verification, of screening, and all of that. And they take quite some time if you want to get this right, to look through some of the documents that are presented by aspirants and all of that. I think that yes, while we are excited about the enthusiasm of our members to run, it also has a corresponding administrative burden that is placed on the party now to meet the deadline without compromising our standards, so to speak.
Okay, let's bring in Labour Party now. Mr. Abure, I'm wondering what the issues are for your party, or are you, this call for extension, is it also what your party desires?
To answer you straight, my party also desire an extension of time it may interest you to note that I'm the National Legal Advisor of IPAC, and we're part and parcel of that decision to seek for an extension of time from Inec. And in doing that, we took an extensive look at the provisions of the law. And I want to say it very, very clearly that the extension of time can be accommodated by the timelines as provided by the Electoral Act and the Constitution. And today, we have tried to impress it on INEC at the stakeholders meeting today that we urge INEC and appeal to INEC to try and accommodate this extension of time. You will agree that because of the enormous public holiday in this period, it took almost 2-3 weeks out of the timelines. And then you will agree with me too that leadership recruitment is very key to our democracy. Primaries, congresses are necessary procedures that political parties will need to go through in order to have this process of leadership recruitment right. And if political parties get it wrong at this stage, it will ultimately affect the product, which is those who emerge ultimately in the polls. And therefore, it is very key and important for us to get it right at this preliminary stage. And then you will agree with me too that the Electoral Act was passed somewhat late. I think we had all the time for this Electoral Act to have been passed much more earlier. And then the timetable now is watertight, and it has put a lot of pressure on candidates, on political parties, and it is therefore very, very expedient for us to have this extension of time. I want to say it very clearly that the 18 political parties are united, are unanimous in seeking this extension of time. I want to make it also clear that in this process, INEC and political parties are partners in progress. And we therefore expect and urge INEC, and are confident that even though we can't get the 2 months that is being requested by the Interparty Advisory Council, I want to believe that INEC may graciously grant either a month or a month and 2 weeks. So we are partners in progress, and the law actually is made for man. The practicability of the law, the reality on ground, must also be taken into account so that we can get it right at this time. Like I said, political parties are unanimous on the need to have this extension granted. And I'm sure that arising from the quarterly meeting, second quarterly meeting of that was held between political parties and INEC today, I'm sure that INEC is going to have a second look at that and be able to shift and grant this extension. The extension, if granted, does not affect the date of election. It will not affect the ultimate date for the conduct of election. The date remains. It may only affect, perhaps, the date for the submission of nomination of candidates. And these two will not affect the provisions of the Electoral Act and the 1999 Constitution. So I think it is perfectly in order. It is a request that I think INEC will grant, and political parties are anxiously and graciously awaiting the decision of INEC, because the chairman of INEC promised today in the quarterly meeting that he was going to take it back to the commission and that the commission is going to look at it. And we are very sure from our own side that the reports or that the request will be favorably granted by INEC.
You, Julius Abure, for that very comprehensive response to the question. But I would bring in Honorable Shaba Ibrahim, who is a member House of Reps representing the PDP. If exactly the request for extension of the time is expedient, really expedient, to your party, and considering the fact that the Electoral Act, 2022 was carefully and painstakingly, drafted and passed, and also gave room for 180 days. I'm wondering how expedient is this request?
Without prejudice, with due respect to the views earlier expressed, I don't pretend to speak for the PDP. I'm not in a position to speak for the PDP. But as a party member, my personal view is that it is not sufficient to simply ask for extension of time. I mean, what is the expediency? What are we talking about here? With due respect, apart from extending the time to collect more money and buy forms, people should come and buy more forms, pour in 100 million, pour in, those outrageous sums. With all due respect to them, I don't see what those things are needed for. But again, it depends on who feels it knows it. They are the ones in the administrative hierarchy of their party, the running of the parties. But I think that we've had sufficient time, and I think we must learn to play by the rules. This whole idea of going back and forth at the slightest, there may be time, but should we waste it on extension? We can, use those times for some other things. I don't think it is, this is personal to me, like I said, I don't think we really need to, once we have set rules, these things were not promulgated yesterday. We should learn to live by those rules. It does not really matter whether we have a plethora of requests or the parties are agreed. There is no democracy in right or wrong. That the parties are agreed, all of them are agreed that it should be done does not make it right or expedient, with all due respect. So, but again, it's within the jurisdictional purview of Inec to either refuse.
He talked about a political process, which for him, has made it,
I've just told you, the only reason that I can see, there are reasons, there are excuses. You must draw a line between the two.
So you think they're just mere excuses?
As far as I'm concerned, these are excuses. People should come and buy more forms and collect plenty money. That's all right. But again, it's not to, I'm sorry, this may sound uncharitable, but that's the way I see it. Otherwise, this party, if INEC sticks to its gun, I can assure you, no party will be late in submission. Are you getting my point? You talk about screening people. Most of the people who are coming are recycled. With all due respect, these are people that you are familiar with. You know their pedigree. You understand? They are not, majority are not first-time contestants. So if they are not gone in for House of Assembly before, they've gone in for reps before, gone in for one other thing, or people who want to upgrade from either ministerial and whatever. These are people that you have encountered before. So I don't see the big deal in trying to screen or peruse anybody's document that will ask for another, is it 60 days? How many?
2 months.
2 months, for God's sake. No, hell no. I think it makes a whole lot of sense that we should have a lot of time preparatory to the election. Let the campaign be robust. Let the electorate feel the people that they want to represent them at various levels. And if you have that time, it will endure more for the polity than what they seek. But like I said, this is without prejudice to whatever they thought was the reason.
Interesting perspective you have brought, but we will, in the course of our conversation, look at the nitty-gritty of the process itself so far, and see how seamless, it has been. But let me hear your perspective, Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu, and what should INEC do really?
First of all, I totally agree with the three speakers, and I disagree with my junior colleague here. How convenient for him, probably, he's saying not view of PDP. Probably is the view of PDP. But look, he is a member of House of Reps. They came back to amend Electoral Act. Very convenient. Now, so whatever speed he's talking about, look, these laws are made for the good of the people. Without the people, INEC will not be there. Yes, and in fact, as of today, all the parties are gearing up to meet the INEC deadline. But then it's going to be too tight. So there is nothing wrong, absolutely, if it means to amend the Electoral Act again, to make sure we get perfect election. What's wrong with that? And what is also wrong with the parties getting more money? Because the more money the parties have, the better they hold their campaigns. So to me, I think it is very, very, it is very important that INEC gives this extension. If they want the Electoral Act.
Why? Why?
Yeah, why? Because look, it is so tight. No, well, more money, yes, just like what you said. The parties also should get more money. That's one. Two, the parties should be able to go through the documents of aspirants. I don't hide. I'm from APC. I mean, there are so many candidate aspirants that the party in Bayelsa State, we lost Bayelsa because of just name mistakes of spelling of a name. So why can't PDP, other parties, make sure that anybody that gives in documents, the documents are scrutinized? And if your party will tell you that, look, why don't you go and make certain corrections in the interest of the party? So what's wrong with that? So time is needed for these kind of things to be achieved. And thank God, I'm sure INEC, as I said, the laws are made for the people, by the people. So there is nothing wrong for INEC to give extension, even if not 2 months, because even if it's 1 week, the parties will be glad.
Is it within the purview of INEC to do that?
Because,
because the Electoral Act specifies to
it is within the purview of INEC to say the conduct of the election, to draw up these programs. It was INEC who did. In fact, 2 days ago, they issued a stand warning.
Based on the provisions of the Electoral Act.
Of course, but just like what the chairman of Labour, Abuja, said, there is still time, there is window. And for us politicians, my brother here in the PDP, probably they have so much money that they can campaign for 10 months. So if these things are getting to later dates, it saves him money also, that instead of him to campaign for all this month, he will campaign for lesser time. And on a serious note, the time needs to be extended so that the parties will be properly and better prepared.
Yes, please.
You see, with due respect, I don't think it has. I'm not looking at it from the party perspective. I didn't want to get too partisan like you have done with your submissions. I'm saying this, and I came clean. I said, look, I'm not pretending to be talking on behalf of the PDP. Talking as Shah.
Neither am I talking on behalf of APC.
No, you have already introduced.
No.
You have said you are APC, and that my
you
party.
As PDP.
No.
Didn't you introduce
that was the introduction. What I said, my speech is not meant to represent the position of the PDP. I thought I made that very clear.
I'm also not representing APC.
Oh, you're now.
No.
Say you're
no,
not.
I didn't
okay,
say
fine,
that.
Fine. You see,
look at the legal advisor of APC is there, so he will talk on behalf of APC.
It's okay. But what I said was not by any means meant to. It goes across. All the parties have had all this time. It's not a time meant for one particular party.
Of course.
But if you ask me, apart from those who are raking in the mega box, what screening has some, with all due respect, let's be practical about it. What screening are other political parties? How many people have bought forms from there? I know of parties who are even giving people forms for free. I now talk of extension. But that is, like I said, it's without prejudice to whatever view INEC takes of that application. But I think we must learn to keep within time, prescribed time. We cannot be asking in courts. That's part of the problem we have in litigation. Application for extension of time to file a statement of this application. But in election petitions, when they go to the tribunal, everybody keep within the rules. You understand? We must learn to do things even at first instance within the rules. The enough of adjustment. The amendment you're talking about that the House has brought about is a lacuna. It's an oversight on the part of anybody. It was not deliberately, skipped over so that we can orchestrate a delay in anything. So we must get that one clear. It is a lacuna that needed to be filled so that we have a seamless process without, so that nobody is disenfranchised ultimately.
Section 84 of the Electoral Act, which was deliberate by you in National Assembly.
Deliberate how?
Anyway, we're not here for that.
I'm not sure we're going into any debate on
No, we're not going into it. We're getting perspectives, and so that we know, which way to go.
Yeah.
And the INEC deadline is June 3rd, and then we just have few more days to go. So, but again, I like the Leonard Silk again to provide some cover for us with regards to the implication of not sticking, to established guidelines, rules, and regulations. What are the implications of that on, the content and context of the electoral process?
The Electoral Act itself makes provisions with respect to failure to comply with it. By Section 84 of the Electoral Act, if political parties fail to comply with the Electoral Act, and by implication, failing to conduct their primaries as required by the Act, the Act now gives INEC the power to refuse to put the candidates of the affected political party on the ballot. So it's a serious thing. We should, as advice, try to know that the Electoral Act has introduced some steps different from what we used to have. We must be able to keep within the timelines, ensure that political parties do what are right, otherwise they'll lose out at the final stage. So it is good that every party that intends to participate in the election reads Section 84 very well so that it doesn't lose out. If time limitations are given for any reason, if you notice what happened, in most of the times, the political parties continue to extend the time for purchase of nomination forms. And at the end of the day, they are now coming to INEC. We have extended the time to the last minute. We want you to also extend the time. At the end of the day, INEC will now be blamed for not giving the required time when at the onset, immediately the Electoral Act was passed, INEC gave a timetable and said, in view of the time specifications in the Electoral Act, the times are tight, and we have to issue the timetable at least 360 days before they conduct the election, and they did that immediately the Electoral Act was passed, giving out the specifications. We must be able to live within the timelines provided. We shouldn't be thinking that if we box ourselves to a corner, then we should have somebody to blame for that. I think political parties should know that, and know that if they fail to comply with the Electoral Act, they risk not participating in the elections. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Leonard Silk. And now the reason for, reason for these requests, for extension, is probably the fragmentation of, those who are aspiring, to be candidates of their parties or representative of their parties, and the electors may not be able to, find it easy to elect an alternative, within the short period. And that's why I want us to look at this process of, people coming up and all that. It's some, so media, outfit have described it as a jamboree. There's so many people. Every day you hear, an aspirant to speak form and Honorable Farouk Adamu Ali, what do you make of what is happening?
To me, honestly, there's nothing wrong. It's just the politics being robust. I mean, and in these times, both parties, like the two major parties, the horse trading going on, poaching from one another. We try to poach from the PDP, and the PDP tries to poach from us.
No, not poaching. I'm not poaching from you.
Also, if there are some disagreements
form for people.
What is it?
They're the ones buying free form for people who are not your members. So
Anyway, so in that regards, there is nothing wrong, honestly. The process, it's for the parties to be robust, for the parties to get the best aspirants and the best candidates that will meet other parties and so on. And look, we are all the same. We are one country, one people. So if you decide to go to party A or party B, it's at the end of the day, when you are in National Assembly, you don't stand up and say, I represent party A or party B. I mean, he can confirm that. I represent so. And so you are a Nigerian representing people of Nigeria, even if you are from certain constituency. So also as regards to the parties are trying as much as possible to, as I said, my colleague here might disagree, But yes, we try to poach, and we poach rightly. We poach rightly because, look, we want to continue to be in power. Just like what the PDP said they wanted to rule for 60 years. Thank God we cut it short after 16 years. So we don't want to rule for 16 years or in government. But for sure.
How many years?
Well, maybe 55. So as much as possible, we are honestly trying to be the dominant party in the country because whatever we do speaks for itself. We're not here for that. But as I said, there are some states I know in this country that members from other parties have joined his party.
I know it's an expression of democracy, freedom, of course, to participate, freedom, of course, to belong. But Honorable Farouk Aliyu, what are the chances of a seamless outcome of the primaries, given the whole number, and yet you're asking for extension of
seamless? There will never be seamless primaries anywhere because it's a matter of interest. That's why you see some people crossing over, like in Kano State now. There are members of my party who have left APC because they are not happy with what has happened, the consensus arrangement they have there. And probably where he comes from too, or where in all the states, you find some people disagreeing with the party and moving to another party. So there is nothing wrong. So there will never be seamless primaries because there are bound to be interests. Sometimes the party executives also tend to be overzealous. Sometimes the party executives across board tend to favor certain persons. That's why you could see in some states that mass exodus, and then when there is reconciliation, let me give an example of Zamfara State, where we lost as a party by default. APC lost. Somehow the governor came back to APC, and there are some trouble, and reconciliation was made yesterday with the governor and the former governor signing an agreement to agree. So these are the kind of things that could bring peace. But while you are making peace with one person, another person is aggrieved. So things can never be seamless, but that's part of politics.
Are you agreeing that things can't be seamless? I mean, that is the essence. That is why the Electoral Act, this Electoral Act, was amended.
That's the intention.
Yes, exactly, to provide, parties with a level playing ground as well as candidates or aspirants.
You see, let me say that, to an extent, yes, but in real sense, provisions have been made for seamless process. If they refuse to be seamless, it's because certain people have decided to make it.
Who are they?
The operators, the parties. I don't want to mention names, but you know them. The parties.
I don't know them.
Okay, he knows them.
Have to.
My colleague here knows them. You see, let me tell you, when you go, you have a party. He talked about, he said something very topical here, poaching. I think it's an indictment on those who you have. I mean, it's like you're passing a vote of no confidence. You have your own members who have indicated interest in running, and all you need to do is to go over the cliff, go overboard, into a foray into another territory, and railroad, albeit unwillingly. I mean, without the consent of, it's an embarrassing situation, if you ask me. Is it that the APC does not have enough presidential material? For instance, I want to be very specific before you go and start purchasing form for former president.
Can you prove
that? The people that bought the boat never said they are members of APC.
Wait.
No.
They didn't buy. No, maybe they were members of PDP who bought APC form for a would-be candidate. I mean, that is for you to look at. But what I find quite uncharitable is what impression you want to leave with your party members when you have a whole list. I think they are the highest in the country, the presidential aspirants of the APC.
Let's look at let's look at the process. You said something earlier on that the system has provided a process for seamless primaries. Yes. I'd like you to speak more on that provision.
What I mean seamless primaries is that timelines have been provided. parties are supposed, and the amendment that is in place now, the one that the House of Representatives will probably conclude tomorrow,
Wednesday,
is to ensure, it's part of the process of ensuring seamless primaries. So that is taken. Again, you have, the rules have been so made explicit that this issue of consensus that is driving some people out of some other political parties have been made in such a way that you cannot get this kind of voodoo consensus where somebody is just, his right is just trampled upon, and you just come up and maybe one godfather will just announce this is it, and so be it. Today it has been, thanks to the legislature, it has been made so direct that you cannot gloss over anybody's right. You cannot intimidate anybody into agreeing with that process. In fact, it has to be documented. Whoever is going to consent to that consensus will have to write to say, I consent. These are part of the things that will ensure seamless, and it will only strengthen our democracy. So these are some of the things I'm talking about. But on the whole, I still maintain, with considerable degree of certainty, that if the parties sit up, they can work within the confines of the timeline given to them, so that this whole idea of shifting each time, we can't be shifting always to, if there are the campaigns coming in from another party, now tomorrow, just a moment, if there are the campaigns coming in, maybe some people are disenchanted from maybe outcome of one primary, okay, accommodate them, they are coming in so that they can all be taken. That's not the purport of those, that's not what those amendments are meant to serve. It's meant to stabilize the polity, not people who are, who have deliberately refused to be stable in their own right. It's within their rights, but they have no right to muzzle the polity because they want to.
it's an interesting conversation we're having. Honorable Farouk, sorry, Shaba Ibrahim.
I hope I didn't take it too far.
Shaba Ibrahim, thank you. I like the National Publicity Secretary of the APC, Felix Morka, who's also a lawyer, to speak on some of the provisions, because I don't believe that primaries cannot be seamless. That's why the Electoral Act is there. It has given us, timeline, time frame. It has also given us the route to a successful and easy primaries. How has your party complied, and are we likely to see a seamless primary election?
Working very hard to achieve a smooth, fair primaries. You will recall that just a few weeks ago at our national convention, our convention was forecasted to have all kinds of horrific outcomes. That didn't happen because a political party is no different from any association of human beings where people are gathered, whether it's a family or any organization, even the NTA. When you have people who are jostling on the basis of their own interests, there's bound to be fierce, competitiveness. People will compete to ensure that their own interests, prevails. That is normal. That is what politics is all about. The competition between parties is clear. Every one of the parties wants to, win power and form government and be able to, govern in accordance with, the rules. But it's no different from the internal politics that primaries represent. So, when you talk about seamless primary, it's not to say that primaries or the election proper will ever be devoid of this sort of, tension or friction or competition. That's the nature, the very essence of primaries. So, having said that, in my party, we are working hard to ensure that some of these systems go on as cohesively as possible, and that some of the areas of friction that often create, again, the excuse for members to want to actually leave the party are minimized. As you may know, our current chairman was himself the chairman of our reconciliation committee during the interim period. So he's someone who is very familiar with some of the flashpoints and hotspots in the party and some of the key actors, who have some outstanding issues. But we are working through that. But having said that, just to quickly say that we do not take our primaries, seriously enough. I think quite often in our democracy, we tend to be fixated on what goes on during the general election. But I think that we need to completely reconceptualize, our understanding and the, kind of primaries we have. Because see, look, at the end of the day, whatever number of parties we have, if APC should, choose Peter and the other parties choose, Janet, for the office of president, Nigerians at that point, now I say that by extension, all of the other parties who are going to field their candidates, Nigerians at general election are confined to voting for these number of citizens. They cannot, at that stage, invent anyone or create anyone or bring anyone to the ballot. They cannot. So it means that, this, quite frankly, to me, is a stage that we need to prioritize. So if it means affording that process just a little more time, I don't think the stampede to general election is that justified if there is valid reason to pause and slow down a little bit and afford more time so these parties can actually get it right and present to Nigerians some of the most credible people we can find in our parties to serve in all of these offices. I think that that's a worthy reason why Inec, in their own operations and in their own authority, to look at the schedule and see whether there are any ways to adjust that schedule in a way that does not compromise the integrity and the seriousness of the election itself. If that is the case, I don't think, quite frankly, that we can just banalize this issue on the basis of parties wanting to get more money and all of that. And indeed, as my colleague said, what's wrong with parties getting money? We speak of autonomy for local governments, for the judiciary, for every institution, even for NTA, right? But the parties that actually spawn and produce those who govern, sometimes we trifle with it when we talk about money. It's all about just the butt of the jokes. Oh, they just want more money. Political parties are serious, entities, and they have serious work to do in our democracy.
Felix Morka, the National Publicity Secretary of the APC, thank you. You said something about not taking primaries seriously. I don't know on whose part you're referring to, whether the political parties, politicians, or the people themselves. And that's why I like Julius Abure, who's also the chairman of the Labour Party, legal rep of the IPAC, also to talk to us about what you think political parties, do you think political parties are doing enough to sell, the activities, leading to the primaries to the electors? Do the electors know, the aspirants, to the various positions?
Question. Let me quickly make a clarification that the purpose of seeking this extension is not to allow political parties to poach members from other parties. The intention is to make sure that the process of presenting very credible, result-oriented candidates emerge from the proper primaries. The timelines provided by Inec is watertight and has put political parties under very serious pressure in going about conducting free, fair, and credible primaries. I think this is the reason that has informed the request for the extension of time. And having said this, I want to say clearly that political parties in Nigeria have the sole responsibility to nominate candidates that will stand for general election. And once that is done, other citizens or the citizens of Nigeria will not have the right to elect any other person outside those that are nominated from political parties. And therefore, it's a very, very important aspect of our democracy that we need to pay very, very serious attention to. And that is also part of the reasons why political parties are asking for this extension of time so that we can get that process right, so that we can get the right candidates to run for these primaries, so that they can, so that credible, reliable candidates can emerge from this process, and then we have very, very credible candidates to present to Nigerians. So I think it's a process that we need to give more attention. It's a process that we need to be more diligent about. And therefore, 1 month extension will not do harm to the electoral process. After all, in 2019, when Inec ran into trouble with conducting the general election, the elections were extended. The elections were postponed, and we had to come back to do those elections. After all, the law is made for man, and not man for the law. And therefore, whatever we can do at this stage to ensure that these are done properly, I don't think there is anything wrong with it. The National Assembly had over 8 years to give us an electoral act and give us time to prepare. You can attest to how the National Assembly played politics with the Electoral Act, and the president will refuse to assent. They were going back and front for more than 8 years. And the Electoral Act was recently passed. And so if we are asking for just a month extension of time to be able to get things right, I don't think it's out of place. Taking into cognizance the number of years that Nigerians have been agitating for a new Electoral Act. So, and I'm sure that it is because of the attitude of those in the National Assembly and as well as the executive that has delayed the passing of this act. If this act was passed and assented to in 2021 or 2020 or 2021, it would have given political parties ample time to study this law, look at it, because this law is novel. As I speak to you, some political leaders may not have even gone through the provisions of this law. So the law was recently passed, and it was very close to the conduct of party primaries. So if the executive and the National Assembly played politics with enacting this law for 8 years, I don't see anything wrong in Inec granting this extension of 1 month. After what is 1 month? In order to get things right at the level of the political parties. This is critical. It's a critical process, and I think it is important for us to get it right so that our democracy can be on a sound footing.
Mr. Abure, for your perspectives. Again, Leonard Silk, I always like you to, give us, clear the way for us and give us a broader perspectives to some of those issues. In other climes, primaries meant to be platform, for politicians or political parties, to sell their messages, redefine their messages, and of course, campaign their messages to, to the electors and to the people generally. From your perspective, are political parties and aspirants doing this right?
The need for us to look inwards and ask ourselves, what are we doing right, is what we should look at now. The electoral process, particularly the amendment of the Electoral Act, took so much time, as stated by Mr. Abure. But then the question was, were Nigerians not alive to the processes ongoing? Do we now say because it was National Assembly, every other Nigerian who is not a member of the National Assembly should look away and never take care and be part and parcel of the events happening in the National Assembly? The National Assembly has done its own. By the Electoral Act given to us by the National Assembly, assented to by Mr. President, political parties shall submit the names of their candidates to INEC at least 180 days before the date of the election. We are saying we do not want the date to be extended. We should not be looking at how much time do we have before we will be able to meet up with the 180 days? If our clamor is to say, okay, the time should be extended, the time for the election should be shifted, that will also give INEC the opportunity to say, okay, we can maneuver within the time that we have. But we have 180 days before the date of election. The political parties must submit the names of their candidates. If we are now asking, but now INEC is saying, give us the names in June. If we are saying we need 2 more months, that will take us to August. Do we have 180 days before the date of the election for political parties to submit the names of their candidates? So as much as we make requests, we must be mindful of the provisions of the law. Agreed, there were delays in the passing of the law, but we must look at it from our own side as well, that we do not box ourselves to a corner that the country will be at a loss as to what to do next. We have the time, we should manage whatever time we have, not to box ourselves to a point that we will not. It is agreed political parties should look at their members, identify who has the best qualities that can represent the interests of the party, and send that person to the country, that they can rush and do it to be able to meet up with the national interest that elections must be conducted, and we have no room for extension of the timeline provided by the Electoral Act. I think we need to do better. That's my perspective of it.
Thank you, Sir Leonard Silk. Ibrahim Bawa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, I thank you very much. When we come back in a moment, we will look at other interesting aspects of activities preceding the party primaries, which coming up very shortly. We have a report, and it's coming from Kaduna. Let's take it now.
It is time for consultations and real bargain for those seeking for political power. As next year's general elections draw nearer, agitations and counter-agitations are high among ruling and opposition political parties in Kaduna. The game plan is how to clinch power in the upcoming election.
We have about 7 candidates that are contesting for governorship, about 36 or 50 that are contesting for Senate. Likewise, House of Representative members and the State Assembly members. So they are all people are busy campaigning for the position they are vying for. What we did as leaders of the party is to ensure justice, equity, and fairness for the conduct of our peers during the conduct of this primary election.
What the party did in a span of about 29-30 days, it took other parties like APC and PDP about 2 years to do. So it tells you the commitment, the focus, and a party that is prepared to take over government.
Though most of these politicians are aspiring, but they are in a political game with what some of them refer to as cross-carpeting to a platform that will guarantee their candidature.
We directed the local government party chairman, for those that are contesting state assembly, they should go, if they reach consensus, fine and good. And if they did not, they should allow people to participate and contest. But we have to ensure that there must be free and fair election.
The new Nigeria People's Party has a new mindset, has a new attitude to approach of doing things politically in Nigeria, and down to the words.
It's good in the party to have consensus, but after consensus, when you didn't have that right consensus, because there is wrong consensus and right consensus. A right consensus is the consensus that everybody agreed and is happy, and we're happy to work together. But wrong consensus is the consensus that has element of imposition, that the people didn't agree, they were just supposed to do that.
For now, the game among aspirants is how to swing delegates into their fold to ensure they emerge victorious during party primaries. Dauda Mohammed.
All right, that was a report by our correspondent Dauda Mohammed from Kaduna. We have another report. This time it's coming from Port Harcourt.
Going by Inec guidelines, political parties are to conduct party primaries and submit names of their candidates between April 4 and 3rd June 2022. Here in Rivers State, the two major political parties are witnessing beehive of activities preceding the conduct of the party primaries. The PDP has already concluded the sale of nomination forms, screening of candidates, and election of delegates.
So far, the PDP has done very well. It has a target and it has not overshoot those targets. They are bound to be conflict, but there's an internal mechanism of resolving those conflicts.
The APC, on its part, is currently selling nomination forms and set to elect delegates that will choose the party flag bearers.
We expect that the delegates' congresses will take place across the 319 wards, where delegates will now be elected who will participate in the primaries at the different levels. So everything is moving according to plan.
The undercurrents are rift with alleged perceived imposition of candidates and clamor for internal party democracy. Inec in Rivers State said it is monitoring the developments, stressing that the Electoral Act must take its full course all through the processes.
It is against our instant laws to impose a candidate on people, allow the people to nominate who they want to be in governance, and allow the people to vote who they want to be in governance into power.
Analysts fear possible encumbrances in the event of litigation from dissatisfied aspirants, though some party sources said their leaders are very circumspect to guard against such. In Port Harcourt, Kingsley Amajiri.
Many thanks to you, Kingsley Amajiri, correspondent from Port Harcourt. You're watching Tuesday Live on the network service of the NTA. Our guests are all still here with us. But before we continue our conversation, let's take a short break. When we come back, we will open our telephone lines and I'll be giving you the rules and the guidelines as soon as we come back.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
And welcome back. You now have the opportunity of joining our conversations as we open up our telephone lines. The telephone number will be up on your screen in a moment. Again, just to remind you that as soon as your calls get through to us, kindly turn down the volume of your television sets so that our guests can hear your questions clearly and provide appropriate answers. We also would appreciate if you go straight to the question, go straight to the point, and turn down on formalities. All right. So let's, again, gentlemen, I'd like to thank you once again. I'd like to start this line of conversation with the APC National Publicity Secretary, and that has to do with, provisions for people on your forms, to indicate, their interest to resign and or otherwise. And I'm asking, is that provided for by the Electoral Act, and is it constitutional?
It is provided for in the Electoral Act, and it is absolutely lawful. Now, you may know, the Electoral Act basically recognizes three modes for the election of aspirants into all of the offices. You have the direct primaries, the indirect primaries, and the consensus mode. Now, under the Electoral Act, where consensus method is used for the election of those who represent these parties, those who withdraw at any point in the process, who withdraw voluntarily, are required by the Electoral Act to execute evidence of that free will decision to withdraw. Now, what my party has done is to include that form upfront in the packet of information that these aspirants are given when they purchase their forms, to have that as a pro forma document in the packet. Now, they are not required at this time to complete that form. They, are in fact encouraged to submit their form with that form blank, just the same way it was given. Now, the idea is that because it's included in your packet, should you decide at any point during the process to withdraw, you will then simply execute that document and then, have it retained in your packet of information for reference purposes. So this is a requirement of the Electoral Act. So APC did not invent that or did not create that, and was certainly not meant to achieve any sort of ignoble or sinister, motive. I think that I know there's been a lot of speculation and discussion about this, but this is the reason we have that document in our forms.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if Julius Abure, if that resonates also with your party. Is there a provision of such also in your party?
We see that form as undemocratic and then as very prejudicial to the process of having a consensus. It is not available in our forms and it's not part of the nomination forms that we are giving to our members. We feel that if there is need for any consensus, it should be free will, and then it will be generated as the process goes on. In Osun, for example, in the Osun election, one of our candidates withdrew, and he voluntarily wrote and withdrew his candidature, and then we fielded another candidate by conducting another primaries in Osun State. So for me, my party didn't include such forms or such a form as part of the form for nomination. We feel that if there is need to have a consensus and we're able to bring parties together or aspirants together, right in that negotiating table, it is more in the spirit of the Electoral Act to have it done at that stage of arriving at that consensus and not packaging it as part of the nomination form.
All right, thank you. We have a caller, Tawheed, who's calling us from Abuja. Tawheed, hello, welcome to Tuesday Live.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Yeah, hello.
Hello, Tawheed. Can you go ahead with your question, and please turn down the volume of your TV set.
Oh, okay. Question is the Inec want to conduct general election. So, the Inec is the way it is is going to get if they need an extension, that means so if they need an extension, that means they're going to election. Or if there is no extension, they are not going to candidate.
Tawheed, I'm afraid we can't hear you clearly. You may wish to call us back so that we hear you, the guests hear you, hear you and hear your question. Hello, Tawheed, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Here. Beautiful, you're clear now. Please go ahead with your question.
INEC want to control the general election. So if these parties are asking for extension, so they are asking the extension of the general election on the side, because INEC have their tax. So are they telling us that if they didn't have that extension, they don't produce good candidate who is going to do primaries?
All right, Tohi, thank you. Excellent question. And I would like the question to go round. So let me start with Honorable Farouk Ademaliu. So if that extension is not granted, does it mean that parties will not produce credible, candidates?
No. I'm sure all the parties will, because all the parties are working towards achieving the 3rd of June. I mean, no party is going to sit behind and wait for the time to come without doing this. And so no party will wait for the time to elapse. So all the parties are working towards, as of today, towards the 3rd of June. And I'm sure the parties will do that. So that's not the issue. But can I comment on the form you spoke about?
Just hold on. Let's take the questions from Honorable Ibrahim, Shaba Ibrahim.
Okay, thank you. I adopt wholesale his answer to that. That has been my position ab initio. It underscores the needlessness of that application. If they sit up, they can. That's what you just said. If they sit up, they can meet up the deadline. And I think we need to really sit up. This idea of moving the goalpost whenever a player is in the 80-yard box should stop. We can't afford this luxury of going back and forth.
Okay. Omar is also reaching us from Suleja, and Suleja is in Niger State. Hello, Omar.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening to you. Thank you for joining us in our conversation. Quickly with your question.
Yes, my question is, what will be the decision of parties, especially with the 100 million naira of APC for presidential candidates? If the common man who want to pick the presidential candidate form could not meet up, is it that they would not be able to be voted for or to choose to run because they don't have money? This is not democratic enough to me. So what should the common man do? Because we are not happy about 100 million naira of APC. Thank you.
Thank you, Umar from Suleja. I don't know if I get your question right. It says, what will the common man do? They're not happy about the nomination and expression of interest forms costs. But okay, so let me bring in Felix Moka, National Publicity Secretary of the APC, to try to answer that question.
Yes, I can understand that, some of us citizens are unhappy with, or maybe unhappy with the amount that was set for the purchase of our forms. But that decision was made very, very, responsibly. And as you may know, we have very critical sectors, in our party. The women, for example, the youth, and persons living with disabilities. Now, all of these three critical sectors were afforded consideration that's made it easier for them to purchase our nomination forms. Women, for example, were only required to purchase the expression of interest form, whereas the nomination form was handed to them for free. Our youth were required to purchase our expression of interest form, which is, by far lesser in costs, and were, handed the nomination forms, the more expensive one, at 50% discount. Now, for persons living with disabilities, just like for women, they were required to purchase the expression of interest form and were handed the nomination forms for free. Now, having said that, I think that, I did touch on it earlier. Now, our party is a party of, nearly 45 million members. That's a huge, electorate right there. So part of what, the party has done is also to encourage our members who aspire to run to actually reach out to these, large membership and appeal for support, solicit for support like it's done everywhere else. It's only in Nigeria we talk about, elections, and people simply ask, does it have enough money to prosecute both primaries and general elections? And people expect you to actually have all of that money in your bank account. That's not the way it's done elsewhere. So we need to evolve that culture. And, there's no better time to start than now. We've got to start that at some point. In many countries of the world, both developing and developed, countries, people put money to support aspirations and the vision of those they care about. So if you think you have what it takes, you have the kind of vision and the kind of ideas that it takes to, govern this country at the highest level, you should be able to, go out there and actually sell yourself and your ideas and have people buy into it. Now, I give the example, not that it's probably the best example of President Obama. At the time he launched his presidential bid, I don't believe he had millions of dollars in his account. But raising a penny here, $5 there, $1 there, created a war chest with which he fought and won, the president. And that's the story, quite frankly, for most of those who seek, elective offices. So, I think we need to take a deep breath. That 100 million was not to say to you, go into your account and get out the money, but to encourage you to actually, appeal to your members. And in this case of our party, 45 million members is a lot. People giving you even just ₦1 can go a long way to constituting this fund we talk about, even as you have asked as well.
All right, thank you. I know across parties that the cost for participation, has been slashed for some category of persons, especially women. But whether that turns, into visibility and recognition for them in the primaries is another, ball game that which we will look up to. But we have Tahir also calling us from Kaduna. Tahir, good to have you with us.
Good evening. Tahir calling you from Kaduna.
Go ahead with your question.
My question goes directly to Nigeria politicians. The way they are running, they are running us that they are just like a common a circle village. They are turning our head around. We Nigerians, we suppose advance with our electoral gain. But the way they are running, APC, they are 100 million with nomination form. You see, this one is running from year to year. Our election supposed to advance more than this. What they are doing, a common man are watching. Election not supposed to be for a big man game. Election supposed to be a free, fair election. They can pick a common man from a village to come and rule Nigeria if he has the quality. But what they are telling us is a big man parade, which is not supposed to. So my question now is going direct to all these politicians saying something beating around the bush. They are not telling us the great things about Nigeria. They are just see our students now, they have to school, track all and here, and they are paying 100 million for a fund. You understand? So my question now goes direct to them. Is that 100 million will provide the quality candidate?
Okay, Tahir, we got the gist of your question, and I think it's the same question that Umar asked, earlier on, which the Felix Moka provided an answer to. Okay, thank you. Please do keep calling, and I'm sure you will get through to us. We will take your questions. Our guests are still all here. I know Honorable Shaba Ibrahim and and Farouk Aliu, you want to talk about the forms and the provisions, for resignation. Okay, let me take Shaba Ibrahim first.
Thank you very much. I've looked at the forms as provided by the APC. I've seen the anticipatory resignation or withdrawal form included as part of the nomination process. Let me say that this is novel as far as I'm concerned, because it's an ingenious way, albeit negative, of running rings around the provisions of the Electoral Act. I don't know how they came about that, but that's just some negative ingenuity. The law has stated clearly you cannot force anybody to withdraw. He has to withdraw, voluntarily. And in anticipating a challenge to that, you have provided a format for those persons who are seeking to be nominated to even withdraw. By signing that form, you have withdrawn even before the commencement of the process. It could pose some legal challenge under serious scrutiny. I don't know who is reasoning, who is taking that. But again, that is for the APC to decide, with all due respect. If you look at, and talking about the question, these people have talked about the common man and common, what have you, how can the common man do this with the kind of monies that have been, slammed on purchase of forms. The truth is the APC, started, I know how it started from a humble beginning. I recall the era of scratch cards to be able to contribute to fund campaign. But it has since transmitted into a very big party. It's no longer a party for the common man. So I see, I know, I feel your sentiments, but note that party does not belong to the common man any longer. It's now the party of bourgeois. Money. And so you just seek some other parties. I'm sure my brother here will be able to accommodate you and some other one. But
Honorable, you have a right of reply.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
On points of law. So, quite frankly, it's disturbing. If you ask me, for a party that grew from the scratch, humble beginning, the way the APC came about is unparalleled in the history of this country. I can't find I can't find a party that grew the way they came aboard. Scratch card. A lot of Nigerians paid for it. A lot of us paid for it. How much was the nomination form then? But now the same people, beneficiaries of those scratch card contributions, are now in saddle, and all you have. I listened to with all due respect, the national chairman of the party, who thought that it was idiotic to even contemplate something less, because according to him, the presidency of Nigeria is so big that
you can't be speaking for them, because
I'm not speaking for them. I'm not speaking for them. I'm talking to what they say. I'm commenting on what I have heard them say. You must get the difference.
But what is your party? Let's speak to the PDP. You are a member House of Representatives of the PDP. Yes. What about the PDP?
What you drop the challenge and I will give a response.
Yes, you also have some cost attached to your forms.
We do have,
which is also beyond the reach of the common man.
No, it's not. It's nowhere near what we have with the APC. With all due respect, it's maybe some 25% less.
Must it be that expensive?
No, hell no. But if you look at it, compared to that one, this one is cheap.
Honorable Adamo Aliu.
Okay, you see, with due respect to my junior colleague here, when he speaks about APC is not a party of the common man, that's the beauty of democracy. We trounced them 2015 and did the same 2019. And that's also the beauty in democracy, that nobody is forced to join the APC. It's not by force. It's voluntarily. And I assure you, the Nigerians will decide whether truly APC is for the common man or not. And also, elections all over the world are very expensive. That's the truth. And nobody is saying that you must purchase the form of APC. Labour Party is there. His own party, the PDP, is there. So as far as I'm concerned, it is derogatory for anybody to say that, look, it is expensive. Yes, it is expensive. That's true. But then you are also not forced to come and purchase the form. And who says a common man must participate in election if he cannot afford to garner support from people? Just like what Felix Moka said, that in our own party, the APC, we have 45 million members. So if a member decides to give you 1 naira, if you collect 1 naira times 45 million, that's a lot of money. So you find out that you're not supposed to dip your hands into your pocket to bring out that money. You're supposed to seek for assistance from other people. And if you see, most of the members who purchased their forms were donated or purchased by them, for them, on behalf of them, by people. So to me, as I said, it's democracy, and people are free to go to the party they want. And coming to the form. No, let me. He's about the form
because let me just hold you.
Okay.
We've been keeping Junaidu from Abuja online for a long time. Please just hold your thoughts there. We'll come back to you. So Junaidu, can you get on with your question?
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Junaidu. We can hear you.
Yeah, I want to speak from the 3 point of view.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, I say I want to speak from the 3 point of view.
Yes, please make your questions very brief, please.
Yeah, the political parties in the country, the entire citizen of the country, and the new electoral system. I personally commend Inec for coming up with the new electoral system that will help to grow our democratic system in the country. The second point is Nigerians, we citizens of the country. I think this is a trying time for all of us to look inward and see who is it that is going to lead us to another 4 years with peace and stability. And the third point I want to make is from the political parties. Please, they should stop vote buying. Please, they should stop vote buying. It is what is killing our country, vote buying. You will see that somebody is hungry for 2 days, no food, no job. If you give him 5,000, you collect and vote. Please let them create job opportunities so that people will be busy doing things. Please, let them change their way of doing things in this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Junaidu, calling us from Abuja. I think it's basically advice or suggestion that he has made, not really a question. And I'm sure that the party reps here would carry your message. Honorable Farouk Ademo Aliyu, please conclude your thoughts on the forms.
Yes. First of all, it's sad that other people from other parties will talk about my party. What is the business of my brother here talking about the form put for my party? And the National Publicity Secretary has explained that that form is not supposed to be signed by the members.
Yes, I did.
No, well, in error. How do you know? You're not a member of my party.
Forms are meant to be signed.
No,
for
but
God's sake,
no. Listen, that's my party. It's not your party.
It's not about your party.
No, it's
what
my party.
You call your party.
No. Listen.
What is internal to you? Listen. What is internal to you?
Do you want to be poached? So please, if you don't be poached, keep quiet. No. So listen. No. I said it's my party. It's not your party. So members of the APC have been advised now on live television by the National Publicity Secretary of the party that that form is just put there in case. That's none of your business. It's our party.
It's my business.
And the party said, no, it's not your business. And the party said, look, don't sign that form now. But in case of consensus, you'll be called upon, the form will be brought, then you sign. What's wrong with that? So it's not by force. And anybody, also including the chairman of Labour Party, look, go about looking for people to come and join your party without that kind of a form.
Yes.
So the PDP also should tell people, look, come to my party because we don't have such a form. That's our business.
And Farouk Adamali, thank you. I've given you the floor to express, to also, react to it. But I'd like the senior, the Leonard Silk, to give us again a cover on the implications. Are there legal implications of that?
Now, the provisions in the Electoral Act that talks about consensus does not anticipate that you fill your consensus form elsewhere before the primaries are done. You come to the primaries, when you agree, it is there and then that you sign collectively, everybody signing that we agree that we are stepping down. So anything done outside that is not in the true spirit of the Electoral Act. So if there is any provision in any form saying I withdraw, which is not done at the venue of the primary election, that form is only for the purpose of what it is, but it cannot regulate what happens on the primary election day. I think that is an area that those responsible should be able to look at the provision of the law again and to see what does the law say, that everybody shall sign that they have withdrawn. It's not by way of saying, I pre-signed before I come to the primaries. I think that is a necessary area that those responsible should be able to be guided to ensure that they don't run foul of the law.
May I come in here, if you don't mind? If you don't mind. Come in here, if you don't mind. I said earlier, and I would like to repeat, that no aspirant who has purchased a nomination form is required to sign that page of the withdrawal form now. No one has been asked to sign that. And assuming there was any confusion, I am saying that no one is required to sign that form, to pre-sign, to use the language of Leonard Silk, the form ahead of the primaries. Now, the form is pro forma. If you read the form, it's literally the language of the Electoral Act. What we've done is to make it a standard form in compliance with the Electoral Act. Now, when you ask people to sign letters, like we did at our national convention, now if I bring 10 of those letters that were signed, they read differently. Some of them, touch on the essential element of withdrawal that will meet a legal requirement. Others didn't. Now, the point here is that this is an effort to standardize the requirement of the Electoral Act in a form, so that if and when at some point during the process, if consensus becomes possible, the individuals who make a voluntary decision to withdraw will simply append their signature on the form, which is already a part of their record in the packet that they were given, that they purchased. So they don't need to go finding a computer to write a new letter or whatever. The form is there. You simply append your signature, within that context. So there's nothing different from what my colleagues have said. It's just that we decided to, standardize that process so that we don't have any errors. Should that individual or any individual choose voluntarily to execute that form, following, of course, all of the, processes of consensus, if and when they get there. That's the whole idea. Nothing sinister at all.
Felix Morka, thank you very much, National Publicity Secretary of the APC. You're still watching Tuesday Live, and we have two more reports. The first one will be coming from Enugu. If that report is ready, let's take it now.
Following the release of timetable and schedule of activities ahead of 2023 general election by the Independent National Electoral Commission, which mandated all the political parties to conduct their primaries from 4th April to 3rd June 2022, consultations by the aspirants of various elective positions in various political parties is ongoing. Sales and purchase of nomination forms have been in top gear. On the 30th April, People's Democratic Party held World Congress to elect 3-man ad hoc delegates as supporters groups also hold rallies to garner support for their choice aspirant.
This is the first time we are seeing retinue of contestants. People are coming out, people of all class are coming out to contest.
Things have been moving on smoothly, except that there are some pockets of harassments and intimidations in some areas that may discourage some people from really participating. Voters' registration is quite very poor. Very poor in the sense that many people don't even understand what we are talking about. And they don't even believe that the vote they have is their power.
Meanwhile, key players have appealed to the prospective voters to beware of vote bias and ensure they obtain their permanent voter cards to enthrone candidates of their choice come 2023 general election. In Enugu, Ikeria Ubu.
All right, our second report is coming from Lagos.
In its timetable and scheduled activities for the 2023 general election, Nigeria's electoral umpire Inec slated April 4th to June 3rd for election of all political party flag bearers. Inec Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education, Festus Okoye insists party primaries will still hold on the 3rd of June, 2022. Already, political developments preceding the party primaries are in sight, a reflection that June 3rd is visible.
The onus is on us as participants in the political process and as people who have perhaps been had the opportunity of more engagement in the political process than maybe the youths, to let them see that violence does not accomplish the end objective, which is to accomplish that change that they seek. What we need to be doing more of is to convince them that their votes will count, because this is one of the areas where they've also had concerns in the past, doubts in the past.
Respondents say the political climate in Lagos is friendly and they're optimistic it will translate to a free, fair and credible 2023 elections.
The voters card is important. Voters card is our right. So the earlier we get our voters card and come and vote, by next year, the better for us.
And so central to our message is this idea of letting the electorate know that actually the potential for change is in their hands. And that if we get just 1 out of the remaining 5 out of 6 that did not vote in the last election in Lagos, we would double the number of people that voted. So quite frankly, we are coming from a low base. It is possible to make significant change. And our message is to let people know that the power of that change is in their hands.
In Lagos, Annie Daniels.
All right, that was a report from Lagos by Annie Daniels. Let me quickly put my question to Julius Abure. I'm starting off with you. Earlier on, I asked whether the fact that some parties, or maybe across parties, the cost of forms have been slashed or even removed for some category of persons, especially female aspirants. What impact has that, made in terms of the number of people that have come out? And why are parties keeping the routes to the primaries very close to their chests?
Is it the roots?
Routes, yes, the routes, the strategies.
There are discrimination against women. All factors work against women, and therefore, generally across the board, in order to encourage women participation, our party and most parties have made forms free for female aspirants. Ditto, the physically challenged, and then for the youths, it's a reduction of the fee with 50%. So I think this is what is obtainable in my party, and then I'm sure it's across other political parties. It is to encourage those who are disadvantaged to be able to participate in the political process, to be able to participate in the activities of political parties, more so to participate in the primaries of parties.
Thank you very much, Julius Abure. Again, let me bring in the Leonard Silk here. And this question is very specific, and I just would appreciate if you can just give us, again, a cover. And it's about the section 84, subsection 3, which seems to, empower INEC, to reject candidates of political parties that do not follow the process of Electoral Act in choosing its candidate. Again, you see section 318 of the 1999 Constitution talks about a political appointee and a civil servant. So just would like for you to clear for us who a political appointee is and who a civil servant is with regards to that provision.
The Constitution defines who is a civil servant in terms of saying the person works for and is in permanent employment with the federal government, the state government, or the local government. That is a person that is said to be a public servant in terms of not being a political appointee. Now, the case of a political appointee is any person who holds an office not being a public servant in the term explained, nor being an elected person into any office. There are decisions by the Supreme Court that said a political appointee need not resign, just as an elected person need not resign before contesting an election. So what the National Assembly did was to look at what will be the implication of the provision relating to people who are political appointees like ministers, commissioners, special advisors, and all the like, not resigning, taking the advantage of their offices and contesting election to the detriment of public servants who are made to resign because they are public servants in terms of being, they are employees of the government in the state, local government, or the federation. So these are the differences that the National Assembly tried to do. But you know that there is already a decision by a court that the provision relating to political appointees has been struck down until the Court of Appeal takes a decision. Otherwise, we will be bound by that provision that for now, it is not part of our law. But it is actually a provision aimed at giving a level playing field to all aspirants. If you have the advantage of your office and you now use your office to the detriment of other aspirants, that is not fair enough. The position is that by that provision of the Electoral Act, which has been struck down, political appointees are supposed to resign before contesting for primary elections. But as it is, that provision is no more, and we cannot say anything about it until otherwise decided by the Court of Appeal. For public servants, as understood, the law says they should resign at least 30 days before the date of the before the date of the general election. But that again has some snags. If you resign 30 days before the date of the main election, the question is, experience has shown in the past where people refuse to resign after getting the primary election, and they deceive their political parties that they have resigned, and at the end of the day, they will fail to resign and tribunals make decision, taking away the seat from their political parties. That is why political parties also come up with the provision in their guidelines that before you contest the primary election, you should resign your appointment. But that again is an area that the Electoral Act says the conditions to be stipulated by political parties should not be different from what is contained in the Constitution. Now the Constitution is saying resign 30 days before the election, even though it didn't say which election, but the understanding will be that election is a reference to the general election. But the political parties are now insisting public servants, civil servants resign before contesting the primary election. These are areas that have not been made that clear by the Electoral Act, but it is actually unfair to public servants to say they should resign now, particularly a situation where the primary election is taking place so many months before the date of the main election. Meanwhile,
all right, let us take Bawa. Thank you. Thank you. I just like in less than 60 seconds, I want to take this last question round. But starting with the APC Publicity Secretary, what are you doing to ensure that your the candidates that emerge from your primaries, are not rejected by Inec or even, taken to court? Hello, Mr. Moka. I'm asking, what are you doing to ensure that the candidates that emerge from your parties comply? Yes, comply with all the rules so that none gets disqualified by Inec. Sorry, my question is to Felix Moka, the National Publicity Secretary of the APC.
Make a comment if you can hear me. Yes, the Electoral Act, provides that political appointees, should resign their appointments before the conduct of any congresses or conventions, which I think includes primary elections. But the Act does not stipulate any timelines by which these appointees must resign. For example, it doesn't say they must resign a week to, a month to, or 2 weeks to. It just says resign before elections, before the primaries in this case. Now, that's the provision that governs. Again, I agree that currently that provision itself, was struck down by a court and is still actively in litigation. So it is very confusing, quite frankly. But I think that, what you see parties putting out, encouraging their members to resign, is that parties are trying to be preemptive to guard against situations where, in the event that the appellate courts do disagree with the lower court and restore those provisions, that they are not caught. But again, lawyers can argue whether or not such decisions made subsequently may, apply retroactively. But that's not the point here. I think that parties are taking precautions to guard against this sort of outcome, where, in the event that the appellate courts uphold the Electoral Act as written, they are not caught in any sort of difficulty where candidates who already at that time may have emerged now find themselves unable to actually run because they are disallowed.
All right, Felix Moka, lawyer and National Publicity Secretary of the APC, thank you. Just 30 seconds for your final comments. For a successful primary outcome, what do we do? Let me quickly.
What we do, we've said things that, but honestly, on that Electoral Act, I think my colleagues in National Assembly passed that bill in anger. To me, how very convenient for members of National Assembly that they can be on their seats to recontest election while others cannot. So to me, I think they did out of anger. But let me finally say something. And Bawa, yes. No, Bawa, I'm seeing him for the first time after 2006. Inec have lost a great man. The silk you brought here. He did one singular act. That gentleman, I'm seeing him for the first time from 2006. He was the INEC official who went to conduct referendum for me to be recalled. And that, no. I'm thanking him.
I'm sure you had the opportunity of seeing him at the end of the program. Let's have Honorable Ibrahim. 30 seconds, please.
Well, thank you. I think it is better to tread on the.
I'm sorry. I'm told we've overshot our time, so I like to appreciate you, Honorable.
Thank you.
Shaba Ibrahim, thank you very much. Member, House of Representatives, former local government chairman and former NBA chairman, Kogi State. Honorable Farouk Ademo Aliu, former minority leader, businessman and politician. Many thanks to you. I'd also appreciated Felix Morka, who is a lawyer and National Publicity Secretary of the APC. Julius Aburi, many thanks to you, lawyer and National Chairman, Labour Party. And of course, Ibrahim Bawa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, SAN. All thanks to all of you for your contributions. And that's it on Tuesday Live today from me and the production crew. Bye-bye.